Where is Dermot then?
Dermot's not. John's going to do the presentation.
All right.
So Dermot's not mobile enough.
John Tush. Right then. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special cabinet. We'll go straight into. There's no apologies. There's nobody missing. Declarations of interest. Linda.
Thank you, Leader. With items on schools, there are usually interests, and I believe had a discussion with Councillor Gwynaira Clark, and her granddaughter is employed at Ysgol Panteg, so I believe you wanted to declare prejudicial interest in item 5 on the Welsh Medium Primary School places, and that will mean, Councillor Clark, that you will go out and not take part in that decision.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
John Tushingham. Apologise for that.
Thank you, Leader. I'll see if I can get through today without breaking this system, like I did last time. Okay, so this item relates to the proposed transfer of the special needs resource base from Pontymoyle Primary School to Nankelin Primary School. I'm going to take you straight, first of all, if I may, to paragraph 6.2, just to update the information that's contained in there. The paragraph currently says that, in essence, the view of the governing body is that the Council should build an extension for the autistic special needs resource base, though the decision of the Deputy Minister was based on the use of the existing school footprint. Just to say that the governing body has actually said that now they would be prepared to see a demountable rather than an extension, but even then they would consider that to be far from ideal. So just get that out of the way before I go back through the rest of the report. If I can take you to section 4, that details the background to why we are where we are today in terms of the decision that Cabinet made in 2013, and then the decision of the Deputy Minister for Skills and Technology in the later part of 2013 in October, which approved the transfer of the special needs resource base to Nankelin. Since that time, section 5, we detail, and there's some appendices that relate to this section, the activities that have taken place to try to facilitate that move. And in section 6, we talk about the response of the governing body, which to date has meant that we haven't been able to actually make the arrangements. Those arrangements relate largely to making some minor adjustments to the internal workings of the building, things like a sensory room and a Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 withdrawal spaces. It relates to staffing and the need to ensure that it's fully and appropriately staffed from September 2014 in order to operate properly. And very importantly, the issue of transition for children. We're talking about children here with autism, and for some this is a very big change which needs to be managed very carefully, and the longer that we have to be able to do that, the more effective it's going to be and the better for the children concerned. We are now in the position of looking to use statutory powers to make this change happen, and the purpose of this report today is to get agreement for the Executive Member for Children and Young People to use those powers should he feel it necessary. The precise nature of how those powers will be used is dependent in part on a report that's being commissioned by Nankelin by a gentleman called Mr. Jim Taylor, who is a specialist in autism, used to work with the Autism Society. His report is due today. We haven't seen it yet, but we've agreed to look at the contents of that report, as indeed have the governing body of Nankelin, who are meeting later today. So if I can take you to the recommendations. I'm going to read these out one by one, if I may, just because we need to be clear about the decision that we're asking you to take. We need you to agree that there's existence of satisfactory evidence that Nankelin is a school suitable for intervention based on ground 5 or 6 of the Act, to delegate authority to the Executive Member for Children and Young People to serve a warning notice on Nankelin, which is the first stage of using those statutory powers, to delegate authority to the Executive Member to determine whether the governing body has replied satisfactorily within the compliance period that would be put into that warning notice, and to delegate authority to the Executive Member for Children and Young People to take any further action under the Act, including making any application to the Welsh Ministers to intervene under the Act as the Executive Member may think appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Brian?
Thanks, Leader. The last thing I think we want to do is to actually exercise any of the powers being suggested we have. And personally, even if I were given delegated authority, I think we would want to persuade rather than enforce the implementation of the Deputy Minister's decision. But we need to be in the position to give ourselves the ability to make sure that that decision is implemented. So this is a precautionary, as far as I'm concerned, move. But as a consequence of agreeing this, which I hope Cabinet will do, it will give me the authority, delegated authority, to take such action as is necessary to ensure that we are able to deal with this situation effectively. Obviously, we want to do that with the cooperation of the school and the governing body, and I very much hope that the governing body will reach that same conclusion today.
I'm sure we all agree with that. Any other comments?
Yeah.
David?
I'm glad that Brian has responded in that way because, and I expected nothing more nor less from him, because the last thing anybody wants is for the council to be seen as waving a big stick, that's for sure. But the one question that I would ask of Brian and John is, if this meeting here is to decide whether or not we give permission for the go-ahead for this particular action, and Brian has properly said that he would wish to encourage rather than to use the stick, what is it that you can still do now at this late stage to encourage? Is there some kind of a compromise position that you're looking at? What is envisaged will happen from here until we get it resolved before we have to use the big stick? Have you got any plans? Are there any ideas that you might very well pursue?
Okay, one of the appendices talks about the discussions that we've been willing to have with the school about the support that we can provide to them. What happens from today very much depends on what's in the report that's been commissioned by Nankelin and prepared to that commission by Mr Jim Taylor. I have to say that we are running out of options here, but we're also running out of time. These children deserve to know what's going to happen from September 2014. So, yes, nobody wants to have to wave a big stick, but we are getting to the point where that may be the only option we've got.
Yeah, well, I do understand that, and I'm aware of the substantive issue, because there is something worse, isn't there? If we don't do this, it could very well be that the Wales Assembly will send somebody in to do it for us, and that isn't necessarily the best way to do it. Certainly isn't what we want, and I'm sure you would agree on that. But it seems to me also that if there is nothing else that you can explore, if you're fresh out of ideas in terms of what you can explore to resolve the situation to the satisfaction of both sides of the equation, then we're in a bit of a cleft stick. And from what you're saying, there is nothing new that you can think of.
Again,
Chief Executive.
Thank you, Councillor Yule. We have had extensive discussions with the school, and Councillor Morby and myself and the leader and the Assembly member all went down and had a talk with the school, and we went round the school and looked at the space available. I think the school, as John said at the beginning of the report, started off with the basis that they could only house this unit if there was an extension built. They then moved their position to say that they would house the children if they could have a demountable, which would carry a significant capital cost for the council. What we're hoping is that the expert that the school have themselves instructed will convince them that these children can be properly accommodated within the existing footprint of the building. And I think if their own expert says that, then one would think it was pretty unreasonable of them if they were not to follow that advice. If their expert says there needs to be additional accommodation outside the footprint of the building, then we would have to have a conversation about what form that might take. But we believe, from our own extensive sort of research on the issue, that there is sufficient space within the footprint of the building, and we believe that the expert will come to that conclusion also. So on that basis, we are anticipating that we can resolve this by agreement at the 11th hour. But as John says, because these children need a time of adjustment to establish themselves in the new building, we can't have the luxury of ongoing discussions over months on this issue.
If I can just briefly come back in on that, that's the bottom line, and that's my major concern is for the kids. We have to accommodate that. And if we have to go the more direct route, the big stick route, for the want of a better expression, to get that job done, then that's what has to happen. But I was just picking up on what Brian said, and that is that he would prefer to encourage rather than wave the stick. And the question was, what have we got left that we can encourage them with? I hear what Alison says, and Brian and yourself, about this expert that they've commissioned, and hopefully, as Alison says, he will explain to them that this is, perhaps his view will be coincidental with ours, and let's hope that that is the case. But if, at the end of the day, we can't encourage, then we have to take that draconian measure, because otherwise the Wales Assembly will come in and do it for us, and then we will all look silly.
We don't use terms like draconian, and we don't use terms like big stick. We've been in discussion with the school since May 2012, and we are at the situation where we're at. We've had discussions with the school. We've all been down there. The AM have been down there. We've got an agreement on a way forward, and that is that they bring in their consultant to advise on the capacity of the school, and what we are saying is that we will comply with whatever that decision is. However, if it goes the other way, then the purpose of the meeting this morning and the purpose of passing this resolution is that it gives the Member for Education the opportunity and the right to act in accordance with the law. At the end of the day, the Minister has spoken, and we have to apply that.
Yeah. Can I perhaps ask Cabinet then to, just for clarity, to agree, in addition to the 4 recommendations, that I also be given delegated authority to consider the report, which is being produced by the expert commissioned by the school, and to implement the recommendations of that report in consultation with the school in order to reach a satisfactory outcome. That would include delegated authority to agree to a demountable if that is what the expert eventually recommends. But I think probably I need that delegated authority to be able to negotiate the implementation of that report in a manner which results in the decision which we want implemented, and that is a successful transition of those children into Nant Celyn School for September 2014.
Yeah, let me ask Linda. Is that all right, Linda? Because we are making a slight change. We'll bring in the monitoring officer.
I think I'm seeking authority to consider and implement.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be fine.
That's fine. So, yeah, I should have said 5.
Let me bring the Chief Executive in.
Sorry, Councillor Moore, but you did use the word consider and negotiate the implementation of. I think if we use that wording, it just gives you a bit more space. Yeah. Is that okay, Monitoring Officer? Yeah.
Happy with that? Any other comments? If not, Anthony?
Just to support Councillor Morby in those recommendations, really. I know, there's been concerns about the process followed, but at the end of the day, this is about a group of young people with special needs, and I think it's right that we do everything in our power to help accommodate them and give them the best possible education.
Yeah. No other comments? All agree? Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks very much, John. Now then.
You don't get rid of him that easily.
Oh, sorry. I lost it. Go on, John. On to you. I've lost my... hang on. Wait, this is a new system for those at the back. It's only the second time we've used it. I should have welcomed you, actually, when we started. I apologise for that. Where's the IT man? He's not here, is he? Come on. Right then, where are we? I get you now then. We're on to item 5. Yeah. John.
Thank you, Leader. This item relates to temporary expansion of Welsh medium provision in the primary sector. I'll take you to section 3, paragraph 3.1, which contains most of the information I think I need to mention this morning, but I'll also go into section 5. We've got a statutory duty to provide Welsh medium education where it's requested. The demand for the places in September 2014 exceeds currently what we were able to provide. The demand for September 2015 is affected by delays in the decision from Welsh Government to allow the siting of a new school for Ysgol Panteg on the Avesta site, which means that that building won't actually be available until September 2016. We're talking in this paper about temporary arrangements for Ysgol Panteg, Ysgol Gymraeg Cwmbran and Ysgol Bryn Onyn to ensure sufficient places are available for 2014 and 2015. Say this is a temporary arrangement. What that means is that we are going to, if you approve, admit above the currently published admission number for the 3 schools in 2014 and potentially in 2015 if it's required, that we need some temporary accommodation in Cwmbran by way of a double demountable, which will act as a solution for both years. And in the case of Ysgol Panteg, we're suggesting that a split site approach is taken that will secure sufficient places for 2014 and 2015, and that the other part of Ysgol Panteg will operate from the current Kemmonsfair Infant School site. That school, of course, scheduled to close this academic year as part of the wider 21st Century Schools programme. I can just take you into section 5. There's information in there about the admissions numbers, but it's 5.7 in particular I want to bring to your attention. There is a capital cost associated with this. That's largely around the solution that's proposed for Cwmbran. We estimate a cost envelope of £300,000. Clearly, this is not a cost that's been included in the 21st Century Schools programme, so there's an opportunity cost in that it's match funded, so shaving £300,000 off the wider programme to invest here is in effect doubled when it comes to the overall budget for 21st Century Schools, because clearly we would lose the match from Welsh Government. Again, we don't think that it's unreasonable to expect that we can shave that from the total budget that we have for 21st Century Schools. It's a relatively small amount, but it is important that we lose that match. Important to note that we lose that match. There's a revenue requirement as well, which is around keeping the Chemisvar site open beyond August 2014, but that's one that we can cater for within the individual schools budget contingency fund. And just to confirm that we have looked at a range of alternatives for provision in 2014 and 2015, and that included around the current Ysgol Panteg site the option for putting demountables in what is now the staff car park, potentially for 2015 then looking to develop the old Griff dining hall on the opposite side of the road from the current site. There are significant constraints with that site as it stands in terms of access, parking and traffic. There are also considerable costs associated with using that as a way forward. Again, the demountable costs are likely to be in the region of £150,000 to £200,000, and the Griff dining hall was actually at one point declared not fit for habitation, so that would need significant work to it. We have, as part of the process for arriving at these proposals, had conversations that Councillor Morby brought together with the head teachers of the 3 Welsh medium primary schools, and these proposals very much reflect their views on a way forward for 2014-2015. And with that, I'd just like to take to the recommendations in section 10, which reflect very much what was said in the summary at the beginning, admitting above the admission number, temporary provision of additional accommodation in Cwmbran, temporary use of Chemisvar School site for Ysgol Panteg for reception year 1 and year 2 for 2014 and 2015, and approval for a funding envelope of £300,000 to achieve this work. Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, Leader. Just 2 points I want to make. Firstly, that these measures are necessary because of an unanticipated increase in the number of parents seeking Welsh medium primary school places for September 14, and that the various options in relation to Ysgol Panteg in particular were looked at, but the only option which I consider to be satisfactory is the one to use Chemisvar Infant School, which fortuitously for this purpose becomes vacant as an English medium school in August this year. This is entirely unplanned, of course, it wasn't our intention, but sometimes these things come to bite us and we need to use it for this particular purpose. And we need to be in a position, I suppose, to explain why, that it was unplanned, it was never part of the scheme of things to continue to use Chemisvar after the current academic year. But this is the best way of actually satisfying the demand and dealing with a difficult situation, albeit that no doubt some members of the community will see conspiracy in all of this, and I can just assure them that there was no conspiracy. This is simply a question of trying to ensure that we are able to fulfil our statutory requirements and meet our obligations to the parents and pupils of those children expecting to go to Ysgol Panteg this September. And I should mention, of course, that the Welsh Government didn't help by delaying approval of the new Ysgol Panteg on the Avesta site, which we'd hoped would be ready for September 2015, but which is now a year later.
Right, thank you, Brian. Anthony?
Just like to thank Brian for those reassurances, really, and to thank John for the report. As you say, it's an unexpected report, really, but you know, I've come to appreciate the realities of the situation, really. I welcome Councillor Morby's assurance that you know, this wasn't the plan, but something that we've had to come to adjust to. I also understand that the causes of the situation that he explains with the delay from the Welsh Government, meaning that the new school won't be ready till 2016 rather than 2015. That's obviously regrettable, but added to the increased demand, we need to do something. And again, I welcome 5.9 in the report that says the alternatives were explored. Demountables, I appreciate that would have been very difficult within what is already a very tight site, and I don't think that's something that we could have been comfortable with from the point of view of provision for the pupils, which should be our primary concern in the outset. I also welcome that the assurance he gave us that the dining hall site was considered, and that the views of the head teachers were taken into consideration. I don't know if there's any more detail that you can give on that. But no, it's this is something that's awkward for us, but that we need to provide accommodation to meet the demand of parents somewhere and somehow. And that I just respect the views of the executive member that's the situation that we've arrived at is the best thing for the pupils, and just to finish on the assertion that should be our primary consideration in this.
Good, thanks for that, David.
Yeah. There's not a lot I can add to that because Anthony more or less said everything that needs to be said, but I will say this, that I've had misgivings about this particular move, and that through discussions with the executive member, Brian, who I think has done a pretty solid job under difficult circumstances, because it couldn't have been an easy decision, and I know that he did, with a degree of earnestness, look at other alternatives, other options, and he kept me abreast of what he was doing in this respect. I accept the arguments for not looking more favourably at other options, which I on several occasions urged him to do. And I would say this, that I have every faith in the degree of earnestness to which Brian and the team looked into this rather vexed issue, and that ultimately and purely objectively the only sensible decision is to utilise the school at Kemsfar. And this is one of those examples where politicians have to make difficult decisions, and I'm sure that we can achieve a degree of serenity once the dust has settled, and that's clearly in the best interests of the children again, which have to be of paramount importance. So I would support the recommendation.
Good. Anybody else want to make a comment? If not, all agreed, sure. Thanks very much. Thank you, John, for the second time. Can I say to the people from Pantig, I should have welcomed you in the beginning of the meeting. I apologise for that. I hope you feel that the case about a good hearing, and it's always interesting to have you to come and listen. Thanks very much. Right, that's it then. I'll close the meeting.